Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at some great copy examples to give you some ideas and inspiration for your tests when you're selecting elements. Again, please only use these as ideas and inspiration and don't just merely apply them, okay? So let's first talk about the types of copy that you can test, okay? We have headlines. I think that's the kind of the easiest one to take a look at. Sub-headlines that I think just logically follows that you'll look at those next. Body copy, captions, and call to action, as well as bullet points. So I'll go through these more in depth as well, but the reason I actually think copy tests are the first element I like to talk about, just from a build perspective, if you're trying to build a test, this is something that is relatively easy to implement, okay? One of the biggest hurdles you're going to run into is that of an IT constraint or getting the actual, designs completed. But when you're working copy, it's just, you're really on the copywriter's dime right there. That's about it. So if you're the copywriter, you can actually run these yourselves because it's relatively easy. You can actually do that within the testing tech itself because it's just a copy change. You're not doing any sort of layout stuff that might break anything. Very simple, but also very, very effective, okay? So of all of those things that I just showed you, of the different types of copy you can test, you can also, for all of those, you can test the wording, the length, and the format. And so here's actually a cool chart that was done by Marketing Experiments that I think is worth looking at. It's not the prettiest, but it kind of gets a point across of how much copy, like the copy length commitment versus the offer itself, or like how much something costs, or what I believe they look at the visitor's motivation and the actual cost of these things. So it's a great chart. I'd recommend printing that one out and taking a look at it. But for those of you who just kind of want me to get to the brunt of it right now, the too long didn't read or too long didn't look at, it's your copy length is contingent upon your consumer's motivation, the level of anxiety, and cost of commitment. So if you have, let's say, high motivation, low anxiety, and low cost, you're not going to need a whole lot of copy to persuade these people to do those things. But if you have, even with high motivation, high anxiety, and high cost, then you're going to have a lot more copy that you need to do, even though that motivation is still high, okay? So keeping that in mind in terms of copy length, all right, there's other things that your copy has to do for you. So let's actually start taking a look at headlines and some of the other copy types I talked about, rather than just wording, format, or length. So let's take a look at headlines. And your headline has to answer two questions. That's it. Headlines are normally short though, so sometimes it's hard to deal with and get those two questions done. But okay, so let's do one. So the question is, what is it? And what does it do for me? If your headline cannot answer this, go back to the drawing board, please, and try again. So let's actually look at this. This is Infusionsoft's homepage currently, and it says Small Business Sales and Marketing Software. That's their headline. What is it? Marketing software. What does it do for me? It's not really answered in the headline proper, but in their subhead, they say get organized, grow sales, save time. So they actually connected that with their subhead, which is a good tactic. So they do eventually, I guess as a headline is concerned, it only answers one of the questions, but as a headline subhead duo, it does answer both. So it's actually a decent example. Here's an example that's not so great. So what is it? What does it do for me? So this is Birchbox. They're a subscription service. They send you some interesting stuff. It's different products, sample sizes. You can try and figure them out, and it's actually pretty neat. But their copywriting leaves something to be desired. So let's take a look at their headline. It says, "Say yes to adventure." What is it? Not really sure yet. What does it do for me? No clue. So this headline, they went the cutesy route, and they tried, they don't even in that paragraph text there, they don't do a good enough job. And from another perspective, they're using a ghost button, which I think is terrible, but we're in headline mode here. The headline does not answer those two questions. It is not a great headline, okay? Let's do another. What is it? What does it do what does it do for me? Convert more leads and with smarter web forms. What is it? There's smarter web forms, whatever that is. What does it do for me? Convert more leads. Actually, this one does answer it. Even though smarter web forms, they probably talk about more in that section there, but the headline does answer those two questions. The what is it? It's still kind of vague, but people know what web forms are. Smart web forms, not too sure, but they know what that is. Okay. So now let's talk about the process for writing headlines. This is a great process, and you should get used to doing this. Generally, I say write between 15 and 20 variations, if you can, when you're going through a brainstorm, without regard to quality at all. Like, just bust them out, okay? Avoid cutesy headlines really at all costs. Keep those two questions in mind while you're doing it. And then when you've written out those 15 to 20, pick your top 10, okay? Then once you're done picking that top 10, pick your top 5 out of that top 10. And then now pick 2 to 3 to split test. If you don't have the traffic to split test, maybe get a vote in the office or try something, have a way to call out the last few if you're not going to be running split tests. But you'll be surprised. Some of your best stuff is going to show up after line 15 or line 20 when you're making them. Just because your first headline was, it got there first, doesn't mean it's best. And a lot of copywriters and a lot of marketers will just leave it at that, where they're like, oh, got what I need and I'm good. You'd actually be surprised. So please actually take this exercise when you start doing headline tests. If you're planning to optimize your headlines or even run split tests there, please try this out. It's gonna do wonders for you, okay? And so in one of those examples I just showed you, they used a subheadline, right? So they used a subheadline to answer one of the 2 critical questions. And so that's why I like to talk about the subheadline next. And the subheadline, it's to support and give clarity. So I get that headlines need to be kind of that punchy, they need to get your attention, but you also need to be clear. And that's what the subheadline does. It's your supporting text. And so working with this supporting text, you can actually do a lot of great things from a conversion perspective. All right. So if you have a long headline, try breaking it up with some of the messages into your subheadline. Why? It can meet your users' expectations, it maintains your message, and it creates a stronger visual hierarchy. Did you see how this looks? That just takes up a lot of space there, and people are focused on the copy. They're not moving around. They know headline, and then whatever underneath it is associated with it. So people are trained to read that way. Give them what they want there, and that can work out well. So now moving into bullet points. So bullet points come to more of a formatting perspective. And so people consume bullet points. So I showed you, this is a scroll map, as I showed you earlier when we were talking about qualitative data. And so in this scroll map, take a look at this. Not many people spent a lot of time up here at the top. What they ended up doing was scrolling down to where the content was most relevant to them, where the bullet points were. Everybody scrolled down to those bullet points and consumed them. Everyone did, okay? So one, that could give us a reason to get our bullet points higher above the fold. We could learn some things there, but I just wanted to show you how important bullet points are, because we are in a scanning culture. Everybody scans content, and bullet points, as soon as they see that little tick, they know that that's scannable territory, okay? Your bullets need to be benefit-oriented, so they need to actually speak to a desired end result of some kind. They can't just be feature, 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 feature. And I'll show you kind of what we do in terms of creating bullet points. So here's what we do, is we start generally with a feature with a few words, okay? And then we add what the feature does. So we say, this does something, and then we add the benefit. We use a so you can benefit, all right? So here's an example of some of our bullet points. We say 32 blog post ideas that leverage other people's content so you don't have to create it yourself. See how they say what it is, what it does, and then how it benefits you. Very, very powerful there. They're longer bullet points, I know, but you can also, since we're scanners, bolding different parts of the bullet point will get people to the areas that you need. So that's how we write our bullet points, and it works very, very well for us. We spend a lot of time crafting these because we know just how important they are, and I think that scroll map I showed you really proves it. All right, next from copy, captions, captions, captions. These are overlooked. If you don't have a call to action in your caption, you are missing out on conversions right there. So captions cash in on the eye tracking appeal of images. When you look at any sort of heat map, people go towards images. They're focused on them, they look for them, especially faces, like human faces. Like we're just drawn there. But we also know with images, if there's copy underneath, it's content directly connected to that image. So if you have any type of image, be sure to have a call to action in that content right there that's describing it. So, because your image shouldn't be some random hokey thing that's on your page. It should be supporting, the main conversion goal. Thus, if that image is supporting the main conversion goal, your caption can then be that call to action that then moves people to it, okay? And then finally, we have the call to action. All right, so the call to action, obviously very, very important. That button text that's on there, super, super important. And we've seen, the standard submits and, finished and those types of things. But the more descriptive you are and the more inclusive you are, the more likely you're going to actually see an increase in conversion rate. So here's actually a great test that was run by at Unbounce by Michael Agard from ContentVerve. And so he just tried the test of start your free trial or start my 30-day free trial. So start your 30-day free trial, start my, and he wanted to see what would win out. And actually, the start my free trial saw a 90% increase in click-through rate on that call to action. All right, so there's a lot of different things you can do with your call to action, and my tips would be use verbs, be absolutely descriptive, use inclusive language of some kind, or you can try with my, make it feel like they own it at that point. So rather than saying like our or we, or just get them to think that they already own it. Because if they start thinking that way, then they can kind of vision having the product and moving forward with it. So use persuasion principles, which we will talk about in the testing portion. And that's really, if you're thinking about what we're talking about right now of using inclusion and those things, those are all persuasion principles. And that's a lot of what optimization is when you're getting to the higher level of it, when you're getting into the persuasive side. That's the top of what I call the optimization pyramid, which will again be discussed in the testing portion. All right, so I've talked a lot about copy structure and conversion copywriting, but let me show you some examples, okay? So here's a type of copy test that you can run. So this is actually a copy test run by Noah Kagan. And you can see it's just a headline test, clean headline test, where he says how to make $1,000 a month, how to make a $1,000 a month business, as against how to make your first dollar. So really, he's trying to figure out, am I looking for somebody who's trying to have a more sustainable company, or am I looking for somebody that's trying to start their first business? What's his target market? He's trying to figure out what really kind of resonates with them. And in his opinion, he thought the first dollar was going to win because people want to get that first dollar in and just kind of get out and go and feel good about themselves. Because we all see those, the framed dollar. It's just a cornerstone of any business. It's a milestone for any business, actually. And so when he tried this test, he was actually a little surprised because the winner actually ended up being the how to make a $1,000 a month business, where he saw a 6.49% increase in sales at a 95% confidence rate. So the takeaway here is that copy is crazy important, especially your headlines, and what you write will actually end up kind of framing almost the experience for your audience. And notice just a simple change from the mindset of somebody who wants $1,000 a month versus somebody who wants $1 for their first dollar. It's significantly different and it speaks differently to your audience. And that's why I think this is a great example of a clean headline test that Noah ran. Right, here's another example. This one is another headline test, okay? And so they tried these aren't short headlines to say the least at all, but you have one that says new book reveals rescue remedies for retailers, and then they go even more descriptive where they say, if you're a retailer in need of fresh ideas and proven growth strategies, this new book is for you. All right, so two different strategies here as well. They're trying inclusive, like this is like, and being very prescriptive as well, versus just saying new book reveals rescue remedies. And I don't think it's a huge surprise. It might surprise some people because I think this is a very long headline, but this one actually increased downloads of this ebook for 307% at a 99.98% confidence rate. So they were being very, very clear about what this was and what it could do. So the question of what is it and what does it do for me was answered immediately. Everything else on the page was really just gravy. So this is another great example of a clean split test for a headline. And here's another example. I like this one. This one's fun. This is a call to action test where they're saying sign up for private beta on the button versus get invited. And if you'll see at the top, it says sign up for private beta navigation bar. But the only thing that changes there is actually the call to action below the fold for invite versus sign up for private beta, or get invite rather. And the winner here at a 273.13% increase in form fills, so trying to get invited to this, was the get invited. I think people think about private beta as work. That was kind of how I took a look at it. And betas, I think years ago, used to be something people got excited about. And maybe that lingo, they were thinking, yeah, you know, people will still get excited about these things. But it comes down to people like to get invited to things. They like to be, you know, on the cutting edge, and they're not necessarily thinking of it as a working type deal. Like if you're on a beta, you're going to be giving feedback. You'll be doing some other things as well. So this was just a nice way of framing what their expectations and playing off of almost that of how people just, you know, want to be a part of something still. Here's another test that we ran. So this was a which call to action increased clicks, and we only were looking at clicks. This was a very top funnel test, and actually this was the test I talked about that revealed in that heat map that we were missing a lot of clicks below the fold. But this was a simple one that just was drive more traffic, boost conversions, increase engagements versus I want to in front of each one of them. So I want to drive more traffic, I want to boost conversions, I want to increase engagement. And by adding that I want to, we saw a 15.2% increase in clicks on these sections of the page at a 95% confidence rate. So these small little tweaks saw some major gains. And again, please don't just think like, oh, I'm going to immediately start, you know, changing my text to do this or this now. Like, please take a look at kind of where your points are. If people aren't reading your copy, if you're finding that your language is too maybe obscure or maybe too pushy, but please, like keep these in mind. But they should be just still for inspiration only, all right? So in the next video, we're going to dive into images and like what type of images you should be testing, and I'll give you some other great examples as well. So I'll see you there.